I'm Mason King with IBJ Media. The magic number today is $50 million. And we have tens of thousands of visitors in the city this weekend for the Final Four, and they're expected to pump millions of dollars into the local economy. But just how much is the subject of a lot of debate, especially with Butler playing just about 7 miles from his campus and certainly within driving distance of the lion's share of its alumni. So let's take a closer look at this $50 million figure and the very inexact science of predicting the economic impact of big events like the Final Four. Now, the first thing to realize is that the figure that local tourism officials are citing for local economic impact of the Final Four, $50 million, is just a guess. It's roughly based on a study from the 2006 Final Four in Indianapolis, which found that 44,329 visitors spent an average of 4.1 days here and dropped about $228 per day. Now, that's direct spending on things like lodging, food, entertainment, rental cars, souvenirs, and shopping. Now, this doesn't cover the cost of tickets, any spending that Indianapolis residents did, or the NCAA, or any local companies or the local organizing committee. And the bottom line, the figure they came up with, was $39.3 million in direct visitor spending. So local tourism officials took a look at that number, then considered the giant seating capacity of Lucas Oil Stadium, consulted with economists and examined spending habits for sports events and conventions, and then said, well, it's reasonable that we could expect $50 million in visitor spending for the 2010 Final Four. Now, a study of the 2008 Final Four in San Antonio found very similar numbers. So based on the two studies, here's basically what we think we can expect from visitor spending in 2010. Out of maybe $230 per day per visitor, $70 to $80 per day will be spent on lodging, about $75 per day on food and beverages, about $40 per day on souvenirs, shopping, and miscellaneous expenses. There are other costs involved as well on things like transportation and the role of taxes and miscellaneous charges. That's pretty unclear. We won't go into detail about those. Still with me? Okay, now here's where it starts getting complex, according to sports economists. Let's start doing a little bit more guesstimating about 2010. We're going to start with the direct spending figure from the 2008 Final Four in San Antonio. Now, this was more recent, obviously, and includes about $10 million in spending from folks like corporate partners, broadcasters, and event production companies. Now, the total ends up being about $47 million. Okay, now first we have the effect of Butler University being in the Final Four with its campus, student base, and alumni base right here in Indianapolis. Now, these folks probably won't be staying in hotel rooms in Indianapolis or eating all of their meals out in local restaurants like the out-of-towners. Sports economists estimate this could cut economic impact by as much as 5 to 15%. The exact size depending on how many local Butler staff, faculty, students, and alum end up attending the games. Now, next we consider how much direct spending actually stays here in Indianapolis. When money is spent at a national hotel chain, for example, some of that flows right out to the corporate headquarters. And this is just one of numerous examples of how visitor spending can leave a city almost as quickly as it enters. And this leakage can reduce the impact of visitor spending by 30 to 60%, depending upon the economic dynamics of the host city. Okay, then there's displacement, which takes into account how much the city would have brought in tourism dollars without the Final Four in town. Factoring displacement into the analysis generates a net economic impact of the Final Four, and the net impact could be 5 to 15% lower than the gross impact. But wait, here's the real wild card. Lucas Oil Stadium holds 72,000 people for the Final Four, which is about 65% more people than the stadiums in 2006 and 2008. But is it fair to say that that would result in 65% more visitor spending? Not necessarily. Who's to say how many Indianapolis residents are going to fill those extra seats? That's the big unknown, and one of the things that makes nailing down the economic impact so difficult and such a guessing game. Thankfully, the NCAA will do an economic impact study of this year's Final Four, so stay tuned for those numbers. And in the meantime, maybe we can agree it's a pretty good thing to host the Final Four, and at the very least, it's a good conversation starter.